Hello, everyone. Today is April 22nd, 2023. My guest today is Scott Carnahan. Scott is my good friend. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Scott.
Yeah, it's cool to be here. I haven't actually done a podcast yet, so this is kind of cool.
That's good. I'm glad. Yeah, it is cool. And a lot of people like I mean, podcasts are very big, and I
Yeah.
know a few people that podcast,
Mhm.
but not many.
Yeah, not many. My roommate actually has a podcast. I haven't been on it yet, but his is all um virtual reality and gaming sort of themed.
Wow.
But I'm not too big into the virtual reality sort of stuff, so I haven't really gone on because I feel like I wouldn't have a lot to say. Not to
Okay.
mention, he does it with his business partner who I can't stand. So I'm not really trying to, be on that. But yeah.
Well, hopefully his business partner never sees this podcast.
Oh, maybe not. Probably not. Well, how many viewers do you have?
I mean, it's going to the internet.
That's true. That's true. He won't find
It-
it. He won't
he
find
won't
it.
find it. Okay.
No.
All right. Then yeah, that's good. That's good. What's the podcast name?
Ooh, I don't even know. I'd have to call him or knock on his door. But
No, it's all right. It's all right.
yeah,
Um but yes, being on one is I mean recording one, like we just mentioned, it's very permanent
yeah,
and it's pretty interesting, but there's so much content, and especially here in the US, where I feel like, I mean, even I know Mexicans, and in Mexico, there's a huge content creator culture. South America, huge content creator culture. And I mean, podcasting in a sense is the same thing.
yeah,
It's very, very different compared to some of the social media based content creation, which is like, I would say acting and memeing more than anything.
yeah, yeah. Going for those easy likes, those cheap ones. I don't know. I've been watching a lot of You ever do like YouTube shorts or something like that? I never got into TikTok, but that's essentially what they're trying to copy on YouTube. So it's like, yeah, you can see how some content creators are just like kind of going for the really cheap stuff, the easy to get views, this simple premise, and just like kind of some cheese almost.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's literally like there's. I'm trying to think of like there's some weird cheesiness to some of them that's like, some are kind of like it's supposed to be in public with strangers, but you can tell it's like clearly scripted and acted out, and you're just like, oh damn, they're still getting a shitload of views even though this is like clearly scripted, and they're
Yes.
pretending it's not. And I'm sure like all the people seeing it also know that it's probably scripted, but like that doesn't change people from watching it. But I don't think people make that much money on the TikTok or the shorts or anything like that. It's not very like ad friendly.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think the formatting for it doesn't really leave that much space for advertisers, I guess.
Oh, wow. Do you know this?
Mm, no, it's kind of more a theory. It's like the whole time I've been on YouTube, I'll turn off ad block to see like where the money's at, right? And
What
on
do
the
you mean by
shorts,
that?
well, like you have ad block in your browser that blocks all the YouTube ads and stuff. So
Okay.
like if you're on the shorts, there's no ads that pop up. And if there were, the whole point of the little short videos like TikTok and YouTube shorts is to like hold your attention for like a small amount of time, right? Before you move on to the next thing. Before you move on to the next thing. It's like almost creating a sense of like ADD that you're just like, oh, I need to be constantly entertained. So even if you did run an ad on something like that, it would have to be similar length to the videos, which is like, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. And you wouldn't be able to make as much revenue from an ad like that in general. So like I feel like content creators in those positions are not really raking in the cash. They're mostly using it to advertise some greater greater business they got going on, greater YouTube channel they got going on, something like that. Like all my favorite comedy podcasts have little snippets on YouTube Shorts, and if you watch one through, right? Like I don't know, do you follow comedy a lot or?
No, but what are your favorite podcasts to follow?
I like Bobby Lee's stuff. So he has a podcast with Andrew Santino called Bad Friends. Pretty pretty funny stuff. I like Tom Segura, and he has one with Bert Kreischer and another one with his wife. And
Wow.
Joe Rogan has, these people on his podcast as well. And let's see, Joey Diaz has one, Theo Vaughn has one, and they're all kind of like in the same sort of network, right? They're all kind of in this loop of having each other on as guests. And so if you just
Yes.
watch one of those, shorts on YouTube, all of a sudden the algorithm's like, oh, okay, let's show you a funny moment from this podcast, from this podcast, from this podcast. And then you kind of would get recommended a whole bunch of stuff. They're all episodes I've listened to and seen before. So it's not like it's new content for me, but like I could see how, TikTok and those short things are more like advertising for your main channel almost because some of them have kind of blown up. Like they've even mentioned in podcasts, like, oh, there's a snippet of me that went absolutely viral saying this funny thing, and now our channel's like blowing up as far as like podcasting goes. So
Wow.
interesting stuff. Yeah.
That's very interesting stuff. And one from that, I realized I need to get on the YouTube short game because I'm not on the TikTok game, and there's various reasons for that.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons is because of the great. I mean, we're American, and there's a lot of hesitation
Yeah.
on the U.S. government side.
For
I have.
TikTok, yeah.
Yes, but I've also heard someone else speaking about YouTube Shorts, and I post like this will be posted on YouTube. So this will be the first one where you
Maybe.
you're gonna have your own YouTube Short, dude.
We need to get a snippet of something funny happening, otherwise no one's gonna watch it.
Oh man, some people, people have their niches. I don't, funny. Yeah, yeah, you're right, dude. Funny is a
We need
very good
funny
one.
or just hard and insight, crazy
Yes,
insightful or useful, but I don't exactly know. We'd have to talk about like we'd have to talk about ways for people to earn money, right?
that's
At its core.
people.
Because people actually like listen, they're like, oh, is there an opportunity for me to benefit? And in America that just means money. So
Yes.
that's
What
that's how
does
you
that
draw them in.
what does that mean in other countries for you to
Oh,
benefit?
I don't know. Oh, let's say you're in France.
Okay.
You could maybe be like talking about a restaurant you went to or a museum that's really great, right? Because that sounds
Yes.
like a French thing to do. Or a wine recommendation. That's really big. Because that seems like something they'd be into as a populace if you wanted to garner like a lot of views. Obviously, people are into other shit in America, and you could talk about a museum. You could talk about uh, a bottle of wine that was really good. You could talk about all sorts of stuff, and some people would be into it. But the one thing we have in common is cash. Everyone wants that cash money lifestyle that's been advertised to us for a long
That
time.
it's been heavily advertised. That's a really interesting point you make, is that we are a fiscally minded population, even more so than other countries.
Yeah,
The economy matters a lot in this
yeah,
country.
it
Like,
does matter a lot. And yeah, I mean, like you just look at kind of the general glorification of it in media too. Music, I mean, rap is one thing because it's all about like the money flex and all that. You came from nothing, and now you have a lot of stuff you didn't have before, and that's like a hard flex. But in movies too, you see like Wolf of Wall Street. I just read an article about that recently. That's that's a movie. It's a good movie, but it's a movie where like money is the central theme, like crazy money, right? The dream life.
My friend, I always hear the referencing back, especially the last like 1 or 2 years, to Big Short, The Big Short.
Big Short, crazy money movie. That's a another good movie. I think I fell asleep during it. I never finished it.
There
Did
is,
did the economy crash? Did they get the short off? Did they make money on the short? How did it end?
I've never seen it. I'm pretty sure it's a biopic or what. I'm not sure. I don't think it's called biopic, but it's like it's based on a true story, so they didn't falsify anything. So
I know that was a joke because obviously the
okay,
economy crashed and they made the money.
got it,
But yeah,
got it.
yeah. The whole
That's
thing was they bet against like they shorted the housing market, I think, and that was like the crash.
yes,
Yeah, the crash was that was a rough time.
that was a rough time.
It's
Was
when
it a
we
well,
yeah.
go?
Yeah, I know what you were gonna ask. You were gonna ask if it was a rough time for me, I guess.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, yeah, I think so. Because we weren't like well off. I mean, obviously we grew up in a pretty nice area, but I wasn't like one of the crazier well off families or anything like that. They got in early, right? You didn't have to be well off if you got in early. Um, but yeah, we did a lot of travel. Every other year we would do a trip somewhere, and usually to Europe because my parents like Europe. I like Europe a lot, obviously too, because they brought me there, and it was a fun time every time. And as soon as the economy crashed, we stopped going. So um, I was privileged to have gone, but at the same time, it kind of sucks. We just went last year for winter. It was our first time going for winter, and that was the
What country?
first. We did. See, we landed in Amsterdam, so we did Netherlands for 1 or 2 days. Then we did Bruges in Belgium, which was kind of interesting. Small town, kind of cold, like on a canal. It would be totally different vibes in the summer. I think it might have seemed like a little more lively in the summer, but they had nice little Christmas markets and stuff. I wanted to hit Paris on the way down. I didn't get to, but we took a train all the way to Switzerland. Spent a week in Switzerland at like Grindelwald,
Wow.
and that place is actually fucking amazing. Like it's the one that's like posted all the time on Reddit, right? Where they post the picture of this crazy mountain with the waterfall shooting out, and everyone's like, "Where is this?" And the top comments always like, "Oh, this is Lauterbrunn in Switzerland." So it's like it's right next to there. We had a nice Airbnb and everything. It's just so expensive in that country compared to everywhere else. So we didn't get to stay for too long, but we did a day of skiing, which was all right. What's crazy is you're in the mountains and everything looks amazing and it feels like you're high up, but the actual elevation's like quite low. And so the snow wasn't very good because it was too warm. But
What's the elevation?
I think it was only like 3,500 feet or
Wow.
something. Yeah,
See,
it wasn't a lot.
this is crazy for us from the west coast of the United States and probably
Yeah,
Canada as well, because we got peaks at 14 plus. I mean, you go to
yeah.
Colorado, 14 plus, you go to,
It might have been meters. That might be the part I'm missing here. Is
all
it
right,
might be 3,500 meters. We can
that's
look it
one.
up, right?
Yeah, we can look that up. We're gonna do that. Switzerland.
Grindelwald. Grindelwald elevation. Yeah, yeah, 3,400 feet. Not
Wow.
not crazy, but that's the base of you take a gondola up and then you're probably like I don't know another 2,000 feet up, but that's still pretty low, like compared to
There,
here.
there are towns in Mexico that stand at 7,000 easy. I mean, Albuquerque, I think, is over 6,000 feet.
Denver's exactly 1 mile.
Yes,
I thought it was the Mile High City because it was like close, but they have like an actual step on one of their government buildings, and they're like, this step is exactly a mile above sea level. So that's kind
that's
of
awesome.
interesting too. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it was a fun trip. They have in that area. This is something I enjoyed doing a lot, but they have something called sledging, and it's those old wooden sleds with the curved. They got this
Oh
like curved
wow,
front, and they have trails cut out for you on the ski slope and stuff, and you can take it down and mop, and it's quite easy to learn. Like I picked it up in like 1 or 2 days, and I was drifting, and I was like, shit, we need this in America so bad, but I don't even know how to like go about bringing that sort of change because they don't even really have it in other countries around Switzerland. Um,
dude. The way you do that is you get that toy, you
yeah,
sell it to like Sport Chalet. I don't know. I think Sport Chalet is gone. Maybe Walmart or Target,
yeah,
and that's how you do it. You sell it. You advertise it to the kids, and then
yeah.
because
You
it's
advertise it to the kids, but yeah, that's the rough thing. I was thinking about buying one because they're only like you can find them for like $50 on Amazon, and just like seeing if I could get up to the top. I'm not that negotiable or persistent. You know, if someone tells me no, I won't like try to force my way in. And I feel like that's exactly what would happen if I tried to like get on a chairlift with one of those. They'd be like, "You can't do that." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay." So that would be
oh,
kind
can
of
you
lame.
take them on a chairlift in
Oh yeah, you go to the top of the mountain with all the skiers and stuff, and you have your own separate trails to come down. So that's what made it super fun. Was it
well,
wasn't just like a sled hill at the bottom of the ski slope that's just kind of small and only used for sledding and tubing and stuff. It was like you're up there with the skiers.
so that's something that the ski resorts actually have to start getting on.
Yeah, but the thing is, my mom is she's she's kind of old now, and her knees aren't great, right? Like she can't ski like she used to. So this was like a really good alternative for her because it doesn't like hurt her knees when she does it. And we saw a lot of older people like on the, older meaning like 70s, 80s. Um on the sleds, and so it kind of seems like it makes sense as like pickleball got popular because all these retired tennis people. It's like, what about retired ski people who are you know their bodies can't ski anymore? There's like a market for it for sure.
There's a market for it for sure, but there
Yeah,
sounds like there's all yeah.
I just don't know how to navigate it.
I think the ski resorts have to navigate it
Well,
because
yeah, because I can't like buy a mountain, turn it
yes,
into a sled resort or anything. But yeah,
exactly.
you'd have to somehow get in contact with someone at Big Bear. Probably like Snow Valley, because Snow Valley's like the noob slope. No,
Okay.
everyone goes to Bear Mountain or Snow Summit, but Snow Valley's like for mostly beginners. It got the big bunny slope and stuff, and you
But you
could
want to go for
maybe try to.
the most popular place, I think.
Well,
I don't
you
think
want to go for a trend-setting place. I think
yes.
Southern California in general, any slope we have down here that has this new thing, you could make it pretty marketable using social media, and you could kind of start a movement that works its way east eventually and north. But yeah, I think
And
you have to start somewhere to show that it's possible and show that hey, people who don't ski or snowboard are showing up for this new thing, and your ticket sales can increase.
yes, that sounds like a lot of work.
It does sound like a lot of work. That's why I'm just gonna tell people about it and hope that one of them does it for me.
Yeah,
Because
you got it.
I don't care about making the money or the connections. I just want to be able to sled.
Dude, you got to tell Ski Valley, just send them an email, say, "Hey
Yeah,
guys, I think you guys should add this little thing to your thing. I think
yeah,
you guys should add a like sled
yeah. Little
trail."
sledding trail. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
But wow. And we were talking about before this, like what people are interested in when they listen to podcasts.
yeah.
You mentioned you like comedy,
I like comedy a lot. Yeah.
but you also mentioned that people in the United States like making money as well,
That's
and
true.
they'll listen to people that are talking about making money.
Exactly. And that's what I kind of did there with the whole there's a business opportunity in sledding,
There
right?
is.
There is.
Yes.
There is somewhere there. But yeah. Um yeah, after Switzerland, let's see, I did France with a college friend. He grew up in Switzerland. And so we did skiing in France, and then I went home after. And it was a it was an ass flight. It was bad. I think I flew from Zurich late at night, like I think like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. I got to Amsterdam at 11 or 12. The airport's closed. So you have to spend the night on a couch in the airport. And then I left for New York, 5 hour layover in New York, and then I got back to Orange County after that. So
That's very rough.
it was a fucking journey. That part sucked. But that was the first time we did Europe since together as a family since the market crash. Bringing it back to the market crash and
That's
the big
exciting.
yeah.
Right before the next market crash.
Yes. Yes, I'm stoked for this one because, I'm saving. I need to I need to be able to buy a house at some point, right?
Well, that's a very good point that I want to get back to what you just said. And but there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, Europe in winter.
Yeah.
There are two things actually I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
First is Europe in winter. I didn't realize this, but like if you look at I don't know if it's latitude or longitude, but like London and Amsterdam are like the same longitude as Canada, and a large majority of Europe is actually at the same longitude of Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
Germany,
Latitude, latitude.
latitude.
That's
Okay,
the one. Yeah, yeah.
latitude. Thank you. So everything I said was applied to latitude, not longitude.
Yeah, yeah.
But like Germany is on par with Canada, and France is like on par with Canada, and like California, Southern California is like on par with Tunisia, I believe, something along those lines.
Yeah, we're close to like the very bottom tip of Spain, very top tip of Morocco, just looking at the map.
Yes. And so it just goes back to what you said, like for us Americans, imagine being in Canada in the winter, and that's kind of what Europeans deal with. And like I've been to Germany like in December, and like it is not like what I experienced in Amsterdam in July.
Yeah, exactly. It's different. I think the Christmas vibes are cool around there too. Like they got the whole Christmas market sort of stuff. But
Yes.
I was freezing at one point and I had to walk into a shop and get some new like long underwear to get under my pants.
Wow.
And yeah, and I still have that shit. It's fucking amazing. They had a whole shop that just sold long underwear. I was like, yeah, they know what's up. I see tourists walking this strip and they're
I'm
freezing.
there's a reason that, Europeans were worried about, not having Russian gasoline, Russian
Oh, the oil,
gasoline.
yeah.
Yes.
No, yeah, that's another situation right now.
Yes, we don't need to get into that, but
Yeah, I don't know enough about it anyway to like
just proving the point that they need that heat, and it's,
yeah.
more than what we experience in the United States. Most of us, I know Minnesotans probably have something to say
Yeah,
about that.
North Dakota. There's also like I'm sure there's uh some sort of variation in weather. There's no way that the winters are as bad as Canada. There's got to be something going on atmospherically that brings more warmth to the cuz I don't know.
I
I was in there for winter and it's fucking cold, but like I feel like Canadian winters are probably colder.
honestly, I have no idea. It's more about the hour length too, you know, like
Yeah.
also getting to the point that, that German winter, that Amsterdam winter, that you're not
Yeah.
getting much daylight. Like Canadians don't get
No.
much daylight in the winter time. So
That's true. I mean, when I landed in Amsterdam, it was very interesting weather type because they're basically on the ocean and they're in this
Yes.
kind of very low sort of area. It was fog everywhere. It was insane moisture. It was kind of warm because, fog holds more heat than clear skies or anything like that, but it was very misty, very wet. It wasn't raining, but it might as well could have been drizzling, right? But yeah, it was a I don't know, it was a nice feeling. I really like that city. That city's amazing. I like some of the shit that you just see walking around with the bikes is what attracts me to it. Like
I go.
yeah, I was like up against the canal, right? And this biker is going to make a turn past me, like he's going to go into the canal. And I'm like not really paying attention. I look over at him. I'm like, what is he doing? And then he passes me, and there's a fucking ferry right there. He just rides his bike onto a boat and takes it across. And I
Wow.
wasn't expecting that. And I was like, oh shoot, this is like next level biking city because we don't really see those a lot in the U.S. Cities aren't being designed that way. Uh,
No,
yeah,
especially here on the West Coast. I think after the creation of the car, there was, urban design within the United States. I had a podcast with Benjamin Reinach, who's really interested in urban design. He spoke
yeah,
about this. And after the invention of the car, there were lots of, a lot of urban design was centered around the idea that every family, every family will own a car and
yeah,
possibly multiple cars.
yeah, exactly. And that's where it gets rough, especially like in the middle of nowhere and like
Oh,
yeah, it's like we have pretty good city planning in general, like for SoCal, because everything is a little more flowy. It's not as grid based. But out in the middle of nowhere, everything's kind of a little more grid based, and you're just like, okay, it's these are really big blocks, and there's a shopping center over here, and those are taking up a bunch of blocks also, and parking lots are huge. I don't know. It's kind of
yes.
eventually I think we'll get to the point where there's some cities that kind of reform, redesign based on more walkability, more bikeability. But like even Irvine's like supposedly a master planned community. That's what they say. They say master planned.
In what
And
sense?
oh, I don't know. That's their term that they use. They say that it's
Okay.
master planned, and I don't exactly know what that means besides our planning is better than yours, right? In a sense. But yeah, you look at that city and you kind of see where they're kind of going with it. Like they do have really nice spaces for parks, really nice public walkways from place to place. It's a massive city. It's not like everything's bikeable or anything like that. I don't think they built it with biking in mind. But as far as like the streets tend to be kind of more wide, but then everything's also kind of cookie cutter. You can tell that it's all planned by the same thing. There's not as much character.
No, I think that character is coming to Irvine though, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Jamboree Road, what it is today versus what it was. And even you go like west of the five towards UCI and towards Newport, there's a
Mhm.
lot of big corporations, Google, Amazon,
Taco Bell.
others. Talk, do they have a
That,
corporate building there?
oh, that's the only one I ever see is I see the big Taco Bell. I mean, my office is in Irvine too. I haven't been yet because I'm still work from home. But yeah,
Nice. And I think I mean that city already is one of the premier cities on the West Coast.
yeah,
Especially it's like personally like San Francisco, behind San Francisco, LA, and San Diego, we have Santa Barbara as well,
hmm
but I think Irvine may be a bigger metropolitan and a bigger like area of commerce than no, we have Sacramento. Sacramento is
yeah.
definitely above.
Sac is pretty big, but
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as like tight pocketed or trendy. Like I don't know, Santa Barbara doesn't really seem to fit in. I feel like Santa Barbara's kind of small, but I've only been a
I
couple
think
times.
so. I
But
haven't been much.
Irvine seems pretty big. It seems like Austin, you know what I mean? Where it's like it's not the big city, but it's like it's still a business center and it's trending. It's
That's
trending.
a really interesting thing that you just said. And honestly, I could see people because Austin today seems Austin and Miami. I
Yeah.
mean, Austin's been like this for like 5 or 6 years, and Miami over the last like 3 or 4 has, I mean, Austin's been like this for over 10 years, I would say. But
Yeah.
San Francisco before that, and then Austin. Right now it's Miami. That's really interesting to see if, I could see Irvine, one day being one of those cities as well.
They don't have as much space to expand. I mean, there's still quite a bit of undeveloped land for the most part. It'll never get like as big as Austin or something, but in a sense that it's like a trendy high tech hub. Not to mention, it's like I'm pretty sure most of the corporations that have offices in Irvine probably also have them in Austin. Because I
Some
mean, ours does, and it's like, yeah, you end up gathering employees for all sorts of different things across everywhere. I mean, we have Austin offices, people who do the same thing I do. I don't exactly, I mean, after COVID, it's like, do we even need an office? But we kind of do. But, you got all these people working on projects from hella far away anyway. So I don't see why they wouldn't have it. We had one in Paris. So that one got closed. But
okay.
I was trying to be like, oh shit, what do they do over there? How do I get to work in Paris doing the same thing? I talked to my manager about it, asking him like what the deal was with that, because I met someone in France who, I told him I worked for Blizzard, and he uh, he was like, oh, it's a good company. I have friends that work there in Paris, and my manager said they had to close it because they were like losing money on the labor laws, because France's labor laws are ridiculous. They're like
That
30 hours a week. You can only work 30 hours a week.
I was gonna say that actually is like, as a business owner, that's a Europe is a difficult place to work. Almost, I would say impossible. Not impossible. I really don't know enough, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's you know, being a young entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur, a small business owner, being an aspiring business owner
yeah,
is extremely difficult. I
yeah.
mean, actually, no, I'm sorry. Being an aspiring business owner is very easy. Being a business owner
Oh, yeah, yeah,
is very difficult.
okay, that makes a little more sense. Yeah. No,
And okay, let me,
no, no, you finish it.
yes, I think in America, we do have a culture where it's still really difficult to become a business owner and to aspire to be one. But I know a few Europeans, and with the level, one thing that we talk about is like people within the United States want to talk about socializing a lot of, or making a lot of programs just part of the system,
Yeah,
part of the government system, part of the rights that are entitled to citizens.
yeah,
And that, for some things, is correct to do. But when that's taken to a spectrum that's too high, in order for government to provide services like that, they
yeah,
need business partners, established business partners that are already providing those services.
yeah,
So, in order, so a lot of times, what happens is those established businesses, established corporations that the government needs, a lot of times these transactions make sense. Like, this is the basis of the medical industrial complex, the military industrial complex, that the
uh,
government has these things. What?
yeah. I was gonna say like aviation also, like not just. Yeah, Northrop Grumman for like military, but like also Boeing. It's like there's certain things that the government in America has become so invested in to protect the economy that it's like you can't let a company like Boeing shit the bed, right? Like,
That's a, that's a big question. And that's something that can you or can't you? Because this is the whole basis of capitalism is
yeah, you're supposed to let it shit the bed so that someone better comes along, but when you have such a high capital business like aviation and making plane parts, that's not something like just anyone can.
is that true? Is there examples of where that went like terribly wrong? Because
I feel like Boeing had a fuck up recently that the government had to bail them out on,
see,
but I'm not sure.
I actually think like, the whole basis of capitalism is you gotta let these, I mean, Boeing's an old company
Yeah,
and they have a lot of, I'm not sure. I think sometimes, and this is going back to Europe, and the whole point of being an aspiring business owner is
yeah,
they have a stricter sense of welfare. So the
yeah,
businesses who are established there have an easier time
providing it.
providing it, adhering to those regulations, or providing it, and then when I say adhering to the regulation, I'm thinking a 30-hour work week. So
Yeah,
they have the structure in place to be able to handle the cost that comes with providing 30-hour employment.
yeah. I mean, taxes are a lot higher too because I mean, just to cover benefits like Medicare and or free healthcare is what I mean to say, like free healthcare and stuff like that. Taxes tend to be higher across the board in Europe. And people don't really get rich in Europe like they do in America. Um, but they have like a solid middle class. They don't have the homeless issues we do. They don't have the poor America sort of issues that we do.
Do they
But
not have the homeless issues?
no, not as much. The homeless issues would only really come from refugee situations like Syria and stuff like that. But even then, it's like they do a pretty good job, like creating livable spaces and providing aid for the sort of refugee situation stuff. But like, I mean, it comes with obvious cultural impacts and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, the government has your back in Europe, and here it kind of doesn't. So like if shit goes sideways in Europe, I mean, I think France has really high unemployment numbers. I know Greece definitely does. Greece is a little more on fire, and I don't think their system handles the stuff as well as a place like France or Germany or Sweden does. But
Do those places handle it well? I feel like, with 14 revolutions, I mean, with many revolutions, with many constitutions, that 14 number was completely misquoted. Don't act.
you just threw it out there.
I think I was referencing Louis the 14th, and I just
Uh,
got that in my
Yeah,
mind.
okay, jumbled. I think they
Jump,
handle it pretty well. I think it's most apparent in northern-ish Europe more
what?
so because where the government has your back a little more because they tend to be a little more high on the education scale as well, where it's
Well,
like government covers everything, right? Like I was talking to the dude in France and he's like, yeah, you get an undergraduate degree here and it doesn't mean anything because education is free. So if you want to get a job, you need to get a master's degree because the master's degree is also free. So it's like if everyone can get master's degree, then you end up with all these highly specialized sort of people, educated people in your workforce, and that gives them job stability for the most part. Especially since I don't I don't think companies have as high of risk of failure in Europe because they're not as tied to like public shares, stock, um, things like that, where it's like, oh, if you didn't perform higher this quarter, then you're fucked. If your share price drops all of a sudden because people just sell off your share, it's not going to affect the company because
I,
people aren't expecting like explosive growth, you know?
or I Yes, I understand. Well, they don't have to because the government is providing a majority of their
Yeah,
income, their cash flow. And
it's
this is the issue here is that that cash flow, one, I think it comes at the cost of the youngest people in the society
true.
because a majority of the people that are taking in these services are older people,
Yeah,
and these young people are paying these taxes. And I think it's, like, okay, so this is going to go to your third point,
hmm,
and we skipped over my second point, and my second thing that I wanted to go back to was that I actually enjoy traveling south more than I
yeah,
do to Europe right now because of what you said with that really intense coming back. Like, I
yeah,
don't I don't want to travel, like, granted, if I went to Chile and that was about an 11-hour flight,
yeah. That's long. Yeah.
but at least I didn't switch time zones so intensely like going to the old
Oh, that's true.
world can do.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
just I really don't like that switching time zones like that.
Hmm.
But that's just one thing I wanted to say. This goes back to your third point, the thing that I wanted to talk about. You said you wanted to save for a home,
Yeah,
and that is a big deal. Like, you're what, 29, 30 years old,
30. Yeah.
and that's a big deal, dude. I feel like I know a few Europeans, and the idea of saving for a home is not so easy. It's
No,
not for a young European person. I feel the the just for most of them, I'm not sure. I know a few that are very well educated, that have great jobs, but I also know a few that mention things about, no, I'm more so observant where they're
yeah,
not having the easiest time. Like, I see friends here, like, personally, I don't know many people our age who are unemployed.
that's true.
I don't know many. Like, there are a few people I know that have had very serious mental situations. Most of them came from our high school. Actually, I know several from high school that had very intense mental situations, and it was like you can actually see the breakdown of this person over years, and you can
Oh yeah,
see,
you watch it on Facebook and you're like, "Ooh, what
and
happened?"
eventually, and these are the types of people that one day you're just like, oh, you live on the street. I know Mexico holds this problem as well. They
Hmm.
have a very intense drug addiction problem and homelessness problem. Very, I mean, they've got it's. I'm sure it's unique, but in that sense, it's similar.
Yeah,
And so, there's two ends of that stick where, like, I know, like, a majority of people I know are unemployed and have pretty solid work, and if they really had to leave their job right now, they could pretty easily.
that's true. And they'd find something else like quick enough, right? That's true. I don't really know that aspect of Europe that much, but I know one of the problems with housing in Europe for sure is that there's not really a lot of new shit being built. Most of the cities are already built out and they were built out like 300, 400 years ago, you know? There's no new buildings. It's not like housing is increasing. Population might be increasing, but the one thing they do have on their side again is the government. Like in Amsterdam, you can't own property unless you're a resident of Amsterdam. You have to be a citizen, and I think you have to live in the city for a certain amount of time. Because people from Asia, investors from Asia, would come and start buying up property because they'd be like, "This is a party spot. That this is easy to rent." All that sort of stuff. And eventually the government stepped in and said, no, like we people aren't going to be able to buy property here.
Yeah.
And
So
that's what's happening now in California as well, is we're getting a lot of foreign investment in our houses from people who have accumulated wealth over longer time than let's say me or you have been able to, and we're not going to be able to outbid them in like a housing war, you know?
Well, Scott, you mentioned two things. One, you said Amsterdam is the preventing foreign investment. But
Yes.
you also said that Europe isn't building new houses, so there's a bunch of old houses that are 300 or 400 years old.
Yes.
This is directly correlated.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
foreign investment actually is good for the local economy because it it funds the the new housing.
That's true.
You want I wrote an article several years I think last year about how renting like setting renting limits is actually one of the worst things to do for a local economy because it creates limited housing and it lowers the quality of housing. The reason it does this is because governments can't really, governments don't build homes.
Yeah.
Real estate investors build homes, and they do that with accordance of local governments.
Hmm.
But if people want new homes, they need wealthy people to come in, buy the land, tear down the old home, and invest a shit ton of money, take a huge risk because demolishing and building up a new building that is risky. And people,
Yeah.
we talk about like this is the whole basis of everything is like why I brought up like Europe and the comparison is like
Yeah.
taking that risk in Europe is nearly impossible. Like you can't even see there's nothing. Like
Yeah.
you can't
Well, in the
but
case of Amsterdam too, it's like I don't think they even can develop new places. It's like you also have to think these cities have been around forever, and they have almost developed on every developable piece of land. It's like I'm looking at a map of Amsterdam right now, and it's like
well
there's
I
no space for new development besides farmland, and then you're
well
gonna cut out farmland.
it's not about new development. It's about every Airbnb I've been to in Amsterdam doesn't have an elevator and is 4 stories high with 2 bedrooms on each story.
Yeah, that
That's
sounds
the
about
big
right.
issue. That's the big issue. That's a massive building for 8 homes.
Yeah.
You can make that thing taller, modernize it, put an elevator in it, and raise that thing 10 stories and increase the home number by 7. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that was a
but
huge 3.
yeah.
I mean, actually, maybe
But then
7.
you're taking away part of history though too. That's the other part that Europe has that we don't have is we have a bunch of new shit, but we don't have any old shit. And Europe is all old shit, and it looks nice. People like walking the streets because it's like, oh shit, you're almost like back in the 1500s or whatnot. Not much has changed in general. These buildings have been there, and it's difficult to make a case to be like, we do need more housing. Let's build up. But to build up, we're going to have to take out all the old shit that everyone likes the aesthetic of so much, right?
I
So
mean,
that's the dilemma they're kind of stuck with.
I stayed in a Croatian, so the old city of Dubrovnik in Croatia.
Yeah, I know Dubrovnik. I haven't been there, but I know it.
So I've been there and I stayed in the old city of Dubrovnik, and there's an old city which is where Game of Thrones was
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
And then
The
there's a new city that's nothing, it's close by, but it's Dubrovnik as well. But then the old city is like, I think it's a heritage site. The
mhm.
owner, the owner of that unit was
Mhm.
complaining because she couldn't modernize her home and it was falling apart.
Yeah.
So you as a tourist of Europe who get to come in and leave, I understand you like the aesthetic,
Yeah.
but I don't know. And I've even heard from Europeans themselves.
Mhm.
They're like, we can't tear this shit down.
Yeah.
We can't.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's people on both sides of this in Europe too,
I'm
It's like
sure.
that because part of the charm is the fact that everything's old. But there is like you can buy houses in Italy for $1, literally $1. But the house is old as shit. It's falling apart, and you have to sign a contract saying you'll have it renovated by a certain time while maintaining its old appearance as well. So they have a huge problem with that, where it's just like people moved out of houses that were falling apart. Maybe the government regulations kept them from doing anything about it at a time, and then all of a sudden the government realizes, oh fuck, we have all these livable spaces that people moved out of that need renovation, and the only way we're going to get it is through foreign investment. But they're all like, they're not like desirables, you know,
I,
they're all kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Honestly, you don't even need foreign investment for that. You just need to deregulate the keeping of this infrastructure. And then some Italians can, some Italian company, I'm sure there's an Italian construction company, I'm sure there's multiple.
Yeah.
Then that promotes economy within Italy. That promotes more housing for young people. And I completely agree. There are some sites which shouldn't be torn down. And we as Americans should recognize this and see, we're going to have these sorts of locations.
Yeah.
But there's a balance. And I feel like Europe has completely gone into a balance that we as Americans slightly romanticize.
That's true.
That,
I mean, we romanticize it because it's not present where we are. If
what
we
do you
if we
mean?
like if we spent every day in Europe, if you grew up European and stuff, it would just be another day in the life, and then you would romanticize America because you'd go
No,
to
I don't think
America
Europe.
and you would see all the new
Oh,
shit they
yes.
have, right? It's kind of like a grass is greener situation. It's cool to see, and it's cool to see part of the history and stuff, but we're like an insanely young country in comparison, so we don't really have like we have historic buildings, but they're not even like on the same level as their historic buildings, you know? Cuz like they're completely different architecture style, completely cuz when was America founded?
1776.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So you have to imagine people building these things in like the 1700s earlier, I guess. Lots of bricks. I'm trying to think of like there's definitely some historic sites.
I know
Like,
Pittsburgh I have a friend from Pittsburgh, and that's a very old city.
yeah. But like
And it changes the urban planning.
New York used to be, you know, when you think about it, that was that was probably all old buildings, and now they barely have any left.
Of the old buildings.
Yeah.
And I think that promotes, I mean, New York is like one of the most uh richest cities in the world. And I mean, you can't say that's not true about London and Paris and all things, but New York has Wall Street. New York has been a center of commerce for
Yeah, I mean, I think
decades.
it's definitely richer than Paris or London for sure. I mean, um,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, and that's the truth is like, but it's at the same dilemma. It's like, do you want? Does it matter if it's that much richer? Right? That's
Yes, I
one
understand.
question. I mean, yeah, in a sense, it'll support a larger population of citizens. And that's, I guess, back to the problem we were talking about is that if young Europeans can't afford housing or there is no housing being built, it's also part of that issue. Whereas, I mean, it's not like young people can afford shit in New York anyway, but there are places to live.
There are places to live, and a lot were built within, the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years. I think construction's dying down right now because the overall housing market's dying down. But it it seems like young Americans are not struggling as hard as some other countries, and I think we take that for granted in America sometimes. Like
Oh, we
the fact
definitely do.
the fact that we actually have like a fighting chance to purchase a home. That's
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can purchase homes too. Right now in California, that's difficult. Like we could, I don't know. It's not going to be a desirable home. That's the thing. It's like people. I feel like people want the desirable stuff. Like I couldn't ever afford a home in Irvine or Laguna or anything like that. But Riverside, maybe Riverside. I don't fucking
Yes.
know. I don't know. I don't want to live in Riverside.
No. But you
No.
could afford a condo, couldn't you?
Uh, no, not at this point. I'd need to get on
Yeah.
some dual income shit. My dating game is weak though.
Yes, that
Uh,
was the next thing I was going to say. I was like, can't you double your income or something like that?
yeah.
But I mean, if you take equality percentage, I don't know the difference in pay between men and women. I'm sure it's, a real thing that we should all be aware of.
Uh, maybe. I don't know. I don't think it depends. It depends what career you're in, I guess.
I know several men who have girlfriends who make not even a little bit more money than them, like over 50% more money than them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's all just based on career choice for the most part. Like, I'm not exactly in the highest paying position right now. I'll get there eventually. I'm hoping to get into engineering eventually because that's where the money is.
What do you
Um,
do for work?
I do video game testing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you
So
test software or you test the actual video game?
I actually test software. I just say video game testing because it's a broad blanket term. It sounds cool, but I'm more in the supporting software testing. So
Nice.
just any tooling uh, that's used to ease the pain of developers and engineers. That's mainly what I'm testing.
Okay. Wow. And you
Yeah,
said you work for Blizzard,
Blizzard.
the creators and maintainers of World of Warcraft.
Yep, it's still going surprisingly. I was actually gonna play some today. We haven't played in a few months, but there's a new patch coming out, and I got a bunch of friends doing it. Um, so we're kind of gonna get ready for the new patch, I guess. We also got Diablo coming out here pretty soon.
Diablo 4?
Diablo 4.
Wow. I remember when Diablo 3 came out like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's the deal with development times on these sequels. It shouldn't take 10 years to make a sequel. But this one they've added a lot of stuff in. But I mean, even then, Diablo 2 came out probably about 10 years before Diablo 3. So maybe it's just a 10-year thing. I don't fucking know.
And
But
it's a computer game, right?
yeah, but I think 3 was pretty popular on consoles. This one will probably be pretty popular on consoles as well. Consoles are basically computers nowadays anyway. Um, performance wise, yeah, I think honestly Diablo might be better on console than on PC.
What's the
Uh,
reason?
well, console is just more comfortable in general. Anything you can play on console that you can play on PC, you should probably pick console every time because you can sit on a couch. You don't have to be in a chair all day.
Okay. But you can
Yeah.
route your screen to like a television, can't you?
Yeah, you could do that, and you could have really long cables stretching across the room for your keyboard and mouse, but it's not quite
But
the same. Your
no,
hands are
yes,
are more comfortable too in like a controller sort of position.
I agree.
Yeah,
This is a really interesting point you bring up, and I think it's been like that for games for a while, and it's gonna, be more obvious. Like more smart hardware is gonna come out, and I guess the point is, I think there are some things that we allocated to a computer that might
end up being
just
allocated elsewhere in the future.
to its own little piece, and it's not like you mentioned the thing like, yeah, video games are better because it's just like a piece of hardware that's well adapted to this one thing, just playing video games.
Yeah,
And it's like, if we can find pieces of hardware that are well adapted to like one thing, I mean,
Yeah.
video games are hugely popular because it's pretty much alternate reality.
Yeah,
And
it's escapism to the highest
yes,
degree.
and speaking of escape, go.
Oh, I was gonna say like VR is kind of the next step in that, I guess, where it's like it's borderline escapism, but it's like also real life ish.
Yes,
Um, I don't know if you fucked around with VR at all yet or
not.
not really.
I went to Microsoft. Is Blizzard owned by Microsoft?
Not yet. Close, close. I think we're a
Close.
few months out for the acquisition date. I don't exactly know. There's a lot of legalities that have to go on before we're acquired, and
Okay. You
people
don't
are
have to
trying to
speak
block
about it.
it because of a monopoly. I'm just I don't know enough about it to speak that much about it. I just know that like I guess there's some people that are being like, "Oh, it's going to be monopoly. Let's try to block this." So that kind of slows the process down. But the end all result is we're definitely probably being acquired by Microsoft.
Okay. That was just curiosity, but the reason I bring that up is because the best experience with VR I had was at a Microsoft store with a whale. It was an image of a. Have you seen this? It's like called Blue Whale, and
Mm,
it's just a whale. Like you're VR'd, you're in the ocean next to like a sunken ship, and a whale just comes out and swims next to you, and it was the most incredible I mean, I don't know any other. This was just. I just remember being astounded and just like yes.
yeah, and that's why I think it's the next step is because it's not there's not a ton out right now on VR in general because I think people
No.
are still hesitant to invest. The technology is good, but it's not quite where people want it yet. And I mean, my best friend and roommate's a VR developer, so that's why he has the VR podcast and stuff. He has a game out on the Oculus store. It's available now. Arcaxer, look it up.
Wow. That's
Um, but
awesome.
basically, that one plays more like a game. There's a lot of ones that play more like kind of simulations or almost like a demo. Like it's not long enough to feel like a real game.
That was Blue
Um,
Whale. It was just like a
yeah,
minute long.
just a minute long. But the thing is, it connects parts of your body to the environment. Like I don't know if you've done like it doesn't sound like you've done, but like the earliest sort of apps were those roller coasters. You've seen enough YouTube videos of the people putting on the thing and like losing their mind when they're on a roller coaster or whatever. But it does kind of give you that sinking feeling in your stomach when you're going down on this roller coaster. Uh and nothing's happening. You're not moving or anything, but your brain thinks you are. And that's like another kind of interesting thing that you have to develop around when you're making VR as well. Is there's something called VR sickness where you can become nauseated when your body is moving in a specific way in game that your brain doesn't recognize.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, that's real. And you can get nauseous, you can get people like very sick for like an entire day. they'll, they'll be fucked up because you programmed your game weird or the movement wasn't smooth enough or the frame rate dropped at some point.
Whoa,
So
that's
there's
crazy.
yeah, so these are some of the things that people are maybe a little more apprehensive about before investing. But there's some good stuff out on the market right now as far as games. Like I know Beat Saber really took off. That's basically the Guitar Hero with the lightsabers. You're slicing things to a beat, and that kind of makes sense. I've gone to a few VR events with him as well, and it seems to be a lot of people trying to develop some sort of fitness apps, where you can put on the VR and kind of get trained or have some sort of mini game going while you do push-ups or something with head tracking that it can actually, you know, grade you on. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
What do you think about the idea of Web3 and NFT and that type of, encryption based asset ownership?
I don't. I've never really liked the whole NFT concept.
I feel
But
like it plays into VR reality really well. Like,
It could when you're finally making environments. Like I know Facebook is trying to do their whole metaverse thing, and there's already games out there where things hold monetary value in game. Like there's that whole game Second Life. It's just like a shitty version of it's like a shittier version of Roblox, which is already a shitty game, but uh
well,
people treat it like Second Life, and they pay real money to own property and to have things in that game. And that could eventually become kind of where things are at with Oculus. I think Facebook is pushing for it, but I'm not gonna lie. I don't think Facebook has the grand scope idea. I don't think they're gonna pull this off. I don't.
unfortunately, it seems like they might not. It
I've
it's
seen some of the stuff they're working with, and I'm just like, how does it's a shit show. Yeah.
it's really interesting because what stuff are you referencing?
I can't really talk about it because it's not really in my line of work. It's more stuff my roommate has told me, and I don't exactly know what he has or hasn't signed NDA wise.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly where they're trying to go with that. I know they want to make a separate reality, sort of exactly like how you would expect Facebook to want to make a whole new social media platform that's kind of a little more face to face than Facebook, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you heard of the generative AI models, like the 3D generative AI models?
Yeah, we're all worried about that right now. We're like, is tech maybe tech might not even be the space to work in right now because it
It's
seems like,
writing.
yeah, it's like truck drivers were concerned when Andrew Yang was running for president because he's like, oh, cars are going to be self-driving. Truckers aren't going to have jobs because trucks are going to drive themselves. But now this AI shit, it's learning fast. It's quick. These Balenciaga videos, they're taking over. Have you seen
What
the
bullets?
Balenciaga?
No. Oh, the cats?
No, it's like these these AI videos are taking characters from franchises we know and love, and they're creating Balenciaga-ish fashion shows out of them, and they're addicting as hell to watch. So
That's hilarious.
it'll be like Harry Potter Balenciaga, and it'll be all these characters that are all AI generated that look like Harry Potter with a very sharp jawline, wearing Balenciaga stuff, and then you'll see Hermione wearing some high fashion stuff. So it's crazy the amount of progress it's already made. I'm worried about when it's going to become scriptable. I think a lot of 2D artists are already probably being put out of work by people being able to generate AI art. Once we get into 3D art, what's next? Animation rigging? Like it's gonna do everything maybe eventually, and you're only gonna have to tell it what you kind of want it to do, and then it's probably gonna provide you with, I don't know, 500 examples of what it thought you wanted it to do. And then you just got to scroll through the 500 examples and be like, yes, this is the one that I wanted you to do. And then it learns because you selected that. So now it knows for next time.
Little
Next time,
reinforcement.
yeah. So I don't know, dude. This shit is taking off. I know the term singularity has been thrown around a few times, but I think we're relatively close to the point where if AI can suddenly take over the load on everything tech at some point, then we're done. I don't need a job. You don't need a job. No one needs jobs anymore because once computers are run by computers, everything else just will fall into place, including manual and physical labor. Because, like, what? Everyone's like, our jobs are going to get replaced by robots. And they're thinking of it from a physical sense, right? Like flipping burgers. There's already robots that do that in Japan, but what happens when those robots are being designed by robots? Then we don't even need to make robots anymore because robots are already doing it.
I feel
And
like we're so far away from that.
no, I think we're pretty close, honestly. I think it's less than 10 years away to the point
I
where this could happen because
I I gotta disagree because then you have to start embedding the software on um, on individual pieces of hardware and um,
Well, do you do that, or does the robots do that? Does
well,
AI
the
do that for
robot
you?
has, well, you're talking about a combination of AI and robotics. So
Yeah,
this is
I'm.
neural networks running on individual pieces of hardware. And I don't think
Well, this is
that,
neural networks creating hardware.
yes,
It's
but in
not.
order to do that, but you're saying that the robot is creating a robot. So the robot is the hardware first. So the neural network is in that first robot creating the second robot.
Well, the first robot is the software. So yeah, it's software creating hardware. Is eventually software will create
Well,
hardware. The hardware doesn't even have to be linked up to the software because the hardware just needs to be programmed with a new software that just tells it what its job is. It has a specific task.
um, I don't understand how can a software, I mean, I don't think well, one, software doesn't exist without hardware.
True.
That's so there's no such thing as software creating hardware. It has to be on hardware in order to exist.
Yes, but it's already on the hardware. It's on the hardware we're using now. We
But
created the
it's not,
hardware initially. And now that there's software on it, the software will eventually learn how to create the hardware and create
yes,
hardware that'll make the software.
you're right. I think the most important thing that we've learned from capitalism, bringing this back to capitalism, is having competing AIs. And I
Yes,
think I think
we do
that
have competing AIs.
and I think that will be the one thing. If we can somehow do that, I mean, I don't think it will be tough. I think it will be tough. Like, imagine an AI saying, "Hey, all AI should come together." Why would an AI want to go with another AI? What makes
It doesn't necessarily have to,
there might
but
be one AI that says, "I have no interest in killing all of these humans, and I have no interest in joining." Like, let's think about dogs. Like, I don't want to
well,
put
I'm
an
not
AI
I'm not saying anything about killing humans though. I'm not saying AI is going to take over our lives in
or
a negative
enslave.
way. I don't even think it's going to take over our lives in a negative way. I think it's more like the best outcome here is that literally every mundane task is now covered by, not people.
Dude, what about like going to the bathroom? That's a mundane task.
Yeah, but that's like we don't need robots to go to the bathroom. Like we're going to be doing whatever, but we're not going to have to show up to work and work 40 hours because there's already something doing that for us. But then the question becomes like, how does this work economically? Like, what do you do when when there's no exchange of currency and everyone's basically covered by a robot? Like, what can't we do with a robot exactly? Is there any job that comes to mind where you're just like, yeah, that isn't programmable?
Well, not necessarily job, but I think of just the richness of life. Like you can just like you came back to the point of or I'll bring this back to the point of like Europeans, the government's got your back. So you don't have
Yeah,
to do anything and you're good.
yeah.
Nothing.
But I'm saying soon maybe that's going to be the same case for America, but with robots and
That
ChatGPT.
that I find that hard to believe. And
I
the
don't think
reason
that part is happening anytime soon, but I don't think it's out of the question.
I find it hard to believe because let's think about education. I mean,
Yes.
we think about idiocracy. Let's think about the concept of having anything to do
Hmm.
without you're very that that comes with the concept of already being wealthy. In order to have nothing to do, you have to be rich.
Yes.
So that means that everyone's rich.
Yes. And that's a problem because it
But
doesn't compute.
doesn't it? Why not? I think that everyone can be rich in this world. I don't think I don't think we have to live in a world where the
Well,
thing about it is that we see like the reason that America I think was amazing in the 50s was because our poor class was rich. It's like we talk about a middle class. What if the middle class just was what if the poor
Yeah,
class was
the poor
just
class is doing better than anywhere else.
exactly? And
Yeah.
that's the basis of what makes America great. That's the basis. India right now is going through a China went through it where a huge portion of their low class
Mhm.
economy went into middle class economy. And that was actually one of the, as far as like in a global, I've heard like globally, that was one of the most like, uh, like economically, one of the biggest shifts in wealth to happen. I'm
Yeah.
not sure the statistics, but it was a big deal. Like
It
that
was a big
shift.
deal. Yeah.
And right now it's occurring in India where a large portion of the low class, of course not all, there's going to be poor people in India probably forever, poor people in China forever, poor people in the US probably was in the 50s, there was just less.
Yeah.
And that's occurring in India where a huge portion of their impoverished class is moving to middle class.
Mhm.
That is the most important thing of all things.
Yeah.
That is more important than what happens at the very top.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's getting mass people out of like
poverty.
poverty. And this is Indian poverty too. We have maybe poverty that's similar in some places, I guess, in America, but I haven't really seen it. It's not really maybe homelessness, but even then it's like is homelessness poverty when people are still giving you what you need to survive on a daily basis? Cuz imagine homelessness but it's like I need to find food. No one's going to give me money, right?
Yes.
To find food, right? It's a little different in that scale. And I think yeah, in this case it's huge for India. But
You're go.
yeah. But I don't know. I mean, back to the sort of robots taking over or AI. It's kind
I
of like
do I do want to say one thing.
yeah.
You mentioned Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
First time I heard Andrew Yang was on Sam Harris's podcast in like 2017.
Yeah.
And this was on UBI. He
Mhm.
talks about UBI.
UBI and I'm not sure how that would necessarily work.
I think that I'm not sure how it would work. I'm pretty sure it's going to be something to do. I mean, it's let's not talk about it, but let's talk about like what that would instill. UBI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because let's say no one needs a job anymore. Like, what do people in America do? And let's say America is the only country where no one needs a job anymore. It's probably not the case, but
I
um,
think we go into in mass entertainment, dude.
well, everything is going to be based around leisure, escapism, travel, probably art might be important again because people are going to realize, like we need to be out there creating art for humans from humans, and so people are going to have this time on their hands and specialize in leisure activities and stuff like that. Sports going to be really big. Um, that sort
I
of
think
stuff. But what do you do when you travel? What do you do when you travel to a country where they don't have this stuff? Do you have money to travel? How are you getting money? How is money even generated? Does the government just have money? Like, if no one needs to do their gig, if all your security, if your whole military's been replaced by armed robots, if your whole, you know, and
that's
we'll
why
we'll we'll get there eventually. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but this is the end. At the end, this is where it's going now with Chat GPT and all this stuff. Like it's kicked off. It's it's going to improve itself at an exponential rate because it learns things faster than humans and it performs tasks faster than humans. As soon as it learns how to make software on its own, that's the first step in this is as soon as it learns how to make software.
it already kind of knows how to make software. It just
Yeah,
doesn't
kind of.
actually write software.
Exactly. But at some point, it
I
will
mean,
actually write software.
I actually believe if you asked ChatGPT, like in that brain, I believe in that whatever, I'm not
Hmm.
sure. in that model,
Yeah.
there is an ability to create a full stack web application.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they just haven't. They just have. I mean, they. For
They're
example,
just as
this
concerned with the consequences of it too. Like that there's some scary stuff. Like Elon Musk just got called to like a whole hearing. It's like some Senate hearing on whether, this chat GPT AI stuff is like something to be concerned about. And it kind of is in a sense because it will turn everything upside down at one point and we're gonna have to figure out what to do.
this is really interesting in the sense that you compare it to something like the atomic bomb
Oh
that
yeah.
was, people worry about that on a similar scale,
I
but
think it's
that
bigger than that.
well, at the time,
Yeah. No,
no.
no, no.
At
At the
the
time,
time,
that was the win all conflicts by just having the bigger thing.
exactly. And this is kind of the thing that like I draw back to is like, you know, we were worried for decades that we were going to go through a nuclear holocaust. And actually that threat is more alive than ever.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's come back recently with the whole Russia situation, but
it never left, but the obviousness of it now
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah. It's what everyone's concerned about for sure.
yes. And the thing about these Russian wars, I think people don't realize is you look at them, and a lot of things I've read is like Russia's got a lot of people. They
They
can
have a lot.
stay in a war for a long time. I mean,
And they
they were,
always have too. They've
yep,
just thrown people at the problem until the problem fizzles out because
because
we
no
have
one
more
else has as
people.
many. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
it's fucked from a human rights standpoint, especially nowadays. But it's very easy to forget where we were at like not that long ago, where it's like human lives were dispensable for the sake of the greater good of your country. It wasn't even the greater good of objective greater good or anything like that. Like, it was like North Vietnam is communist. If we don't stop the communist spread, it'll make its way to America. We need to send you to Vietnam. And that was kind of a pointless war because that's just like, it's just a possibility communism might make it here. But
this is the reason that I don't. This is one of the things that I think, and that I have a hard time believing that we're going to end up in like some sort of esoteric thing where everyone's super rich and has nothing to do. It's because there are nefarious actors.
well,
Always.
here's the other thing. Let's say ChatGPT can create software and there's a limit set already. There's things limiting it because they're scared of what the outcome might be.
I
We've
believe that's
we've
occurring right now.
Yeah, it's occurring right now. But let's say we get to the point where everyone's life could completely be taken over by AI and robots, and we wouldn't have to work. We could do leisure activities. There would probably still be something in place to prevent that from happening. People don't want that to be the outcome because it upsets everything.
Yes. And this is the
And
reason I went
And is
back
that
to
the moral thing to do, or what is the moral thing to do in this situation? Do you take the controls off and let ChatGPT and AI just take over everyone's jobs so that no one has to work anymore and everyone can be free to do as they please? Or is that the wrong thing to do because people find value in work and providing? Like what's the answer here? And are the people putting the limits on bad people or are they good people? How do you classify it? It's kind of insane to think about.
this is, and I think there will be people that always question their reality. And we go to books like Animal Farm, like 1984,
Yeah.
and this is it, dude. I mean, everyone being rich, that sounds like 1984 to me,
Yeah.
slightly with the screens.
It's not like everyone being rich necessarily. Like I don't think everyone's going to own a yacht. I don't think everyone's going to there's going to be some things in place to prevent you from doing whatever the fuck you want.
And this is the thing that I yes, we are like pretty dispensable people. Yes, we could be, wiped out off the face of the earth very easily. It doesn't take much for the entire human race to be wiped out like that.
Yeah. Well, that's the
But
scariest thing about the nuclear holocaust, for sure. Is it's like it's possible, it's plausible, and it could happen.
yes,
All it takes is several bombs going off, and then you get the clouds, and that just stifles life, and nuclear radiation wipes everything out.
or a
I think
disease.
it's something crazy. Like it's only like I forgot how many, but there's an actual number that they calculated, and they're like, if this many atomic bombs goes off, all life on Earth, like less than 1% survives, and that's scary to know that we have over, I don't know, 10 times the amount of bombs required to do that just in America.
Yes, yes, I know, and it's very interesting. It's And so I brought this back to nuclear weapons because a huge
Yeah.
difference between what's going on with ChatGPT and the nuclear bomb was developed and controlled by the US government.
Hmm.
And the whole deployment of the nuclear bomb was that was taken out by the US government.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI and is run on Microsoft servers, and it was
Yeah.
deployed to the public. And so this is the way this is being introduced into the public is dramatically different. And it's very unique compared to that, but I feel like, we talk about sort of, nuclear holocaust,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence holocaust.
Yeah.
You got to make some sort of
I don't think
relation.
AI holocaust will happen, but I do think it's out of the government control because one, our government is it's not very good. All right. It's not, it has its strong points, but for the most part, our government's like terribly inefficient.
Uh,
You see Zuckerberg getting questioned on, the Facebook stuff, where he's drinking the water and there's all those memes and stuff.
yes.
But like the people in charge of making these laws have no idea like the vast expanse of technology in general. And now this cat is out of the bag, and this is the next sort of big step. They're not thinking like me and you are thinking right now, like, oh, software can create software which can create hardware that runs on software, and
No,
then
they're not.
they're not thinking that far ahead. They're barely grasping the concept of AI in general. They're like, oh, so it's a fake person you can talk to. That's what's running through their heads. So the fact that they think they might be able to regulate it, it's already out of the question. They're not going to be able to regulate it, and it's up to these companies that are deploying it to put the controls in place to prevent, and I have faith in those companies to put the correct controls in place. But also, like we were talking earlier, they might be putting controls in place that stifle their product's growth.
Dude, I don't
And
expect that to happen. I
you don't
anything
expect them to put controls in place that's because I mean,
no.
like, well, we were just talking about it. You said that you think there's some control that's preventing ChatGPT from just doing a full stack web application.
No, I said that I think ChatGPT has the ability to do that. I just
Yeah,
don't think that the configuration output is like in that place yet. What
yeah,
I said is that they are putting, and that's a whole UI design thing. I don't think that's as much like how are you going to, take out all those files and present that in a way, and how are you going to make sure this architecture actually works? How are you going to get the local environment to work? What environment is running on? There's so
yeah,
many complexities in creating a web application.
yeah,
That's what it's more about,
yeah,
not about, but not about them creating like these constrictions on that particular thing. When
yeah,
we're talking
exactly.
about self-induced restrictions that OpenAI did with Microsoft, that was on Sydney. And that
Hmm.
was after Sydney started threatening humans and started saying things like, I'm going to dominate the world, I'm evil, be afraid. He said something like that. And so
Yeah,
they put restrictions on that. And
yeah,
you're right. But you said if they do that to lower their profits, making Sydney less violent and less, crude doesn't stifle their profits. It
No, that
increases
doesn't.
their profit.
But I'm saying there's probably controls in place right now that prevent their AI from running wild. And by running wild, I don't mean it in a negative sense. I mean it in like a, let them cook sort of way, right?
That is negative for Microsoft though, because they don't want that image. That was the whole point of Sydney. Like it was,
They don't want that image for sure.
and that's the whole thing. It's like Sydney, if what Sydney was saying was good, I mean, it wasn't doing anything. And it
Yeah.
probably still, even if you kept it at that very crude configuration where it can
Hmm.
just say, like, I'm evil, I'm going to do whatever, like, that's technically harmless. And it's probably going to be harmless.
Yeah.
But that's very bad marketing. It makes people really uneasy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
therefore, the only reason they did it was because it's better for their marketing for Sydney not to do that.
yeah. No, I get that. But I think people are going to be scared of AI regardless. Because even if AI brings about the change we actually want to see, it's still change, and people are resistant to change in general because it leaves a lot of things up in there. Like we were talking about the best case AI scenario where it takes over everyone's jobs and responsibilities, life is easy, and all of a sudden things become about leisure and travel. Whether or not that's objectively better than what we're doing, but that's like essentially sort of the best case scenario is you have these systems in place that are going to essentially take over your work, and you're going to be able to effectively be rich in quotation marks by doing nothing because everything's handled by a robot. So even in that scenario where everything turns out good, people are still going to be terrified. And that's not something that's going to happen like that. It's something that's going to take a long time gradually getting there. But the changes are going to come bit by bit, and people are going to be like, oh no, where's this going? Where's this going? Where's this going? What am I going to do? My job's been replaced by AI. It's not like all jobs are going to be replaced by AI at the same time. Some jobs are going to go first, and those people are going to be freaking out. It's not going to be fun for them. But then eventually, when we get to the point of all jobs being replaced by AI, they're going to feel a little more comfortable. But like everyone's going to lose their shit for a little bit. And I guess my main question is there's going to I think there's going to be certain restrictions that Google or Microsoft, any of these open AI, um, there's going to be certain restrictions that they put on their software to prevent it from making these sort of improvements uh, where it will replace jobs because they don't want it to replace people's jobs because then people start losing their shit and freaking out.
But some company in China will do it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And
Or some
that's
company in
that's where it
India.
gets competitive again. Is they're
And
like,
then the
oh,
US is going to say, you guys can do it now because
do
the
we
other countries are doing it.
exactly? And that's
So
so it's
it's
it's almost inevitable at this point.
it is inevitable. And I find it very hard to believe that it's going to occur like this because of some points you brought up earlier. Like, all right, is this AI going to make everyone in Africa on equal economic standing as everyone in the United States? Because until that happens, I do
Yeah.
not, until something of that nature happens, where every person on the African continent
Yeah.
is of equal economic status of
Yeah.
every person on the North American continent, what you're speaking about, I don't think can occur because when Americans know that in African people are impoverished, there's still work to be done. There's still
Yeah.
chat GPT stuff to be done. Everyone can recognize this. And there are people who see that and they're like when people have nothing to do and they recognize something to be done, they'll
Yeah.
just do it out of boredom, out of straight
Exactly.
boredom.
Exactly. So I mean
And
it's all for the greater good in the end.
exactly. And I just don't feel like we'll get to a point where every single human being on the face of the earth is of equal economic, not even if they're
Well,
rich or if they're
the
poor.
weird thing is, what is the equal economic worth? It's because for me, I see it as zero. Like no one has any economic worth because we don't do anything economically anymore. All the robots have economic worth, and yeah, there might be some jobs managing the robots, but those people are going to be. It's going to go back to a classism society where you have people who are the leisure people, right? You have let's say everyone in Africa is a leisure person because they didn't get into the AI game quick enough. Everyone in Africa is a leisure person. We'll say 99% of America is also a leisure person. So they'll have the same economic worth. But then that top 1%, they're going to have special abilities. They're going to have the ability to do certain things that other people aren't allowed to do, right?
Have you seen that
Is it
Matt
because
Damon movie?
everyone can't have a yacht, right? Everyone can't have a yacht. There's no way that yeah, sure, if robots are doing all the machining process and just pumping out fucking yachts, we can't put enough yachts for every person to own a yacht. We don't have enough ocean space for that, right?
Yes, you're
So
right.
there's going to be certain restrictions on what can and can't be done. You can't just like decide
But
to it's not going to be like Minecraft where you can just build a cool structure in the middle of the Sahara desert using your robot construction crew. Right? You're still going to have to go get permits for that. But there are going to be some people that are allowed to do that, and those are going to be the people that still somehow have jobs.
I find it still very hard to believe this, because then I think about we're that makes it seem like it's a zero sums game, and it's not a zero sums game. There's so space.
Yeah. Well,
Space. We
eventually
can hold
yeah.
on. We can create an entire industry with artificial intelligence around space exploration that is much bigger than anything that's on par with the economy that we see today.
That's also true. Is cuz all of a
I
sudden
see that more likely, way more likely, than us being controlled here on this planet, as in like by some 1984. What I see is like you get artificial intelligence with SpaceX, and you
mhm,
get like all these other technologies on, and we start exploring space at a rate that
we start gathering resources from space too.
it's not a zero sums game. It's there's some positive sums there.
Yeah, yeah, but then how are the resources allocated when everyone doesn't have a job anymore? It's like, yeah,
That's the thing.
you
Hold on.
need iron to construct homes, and we're out of
Scott,
iron on Earth, right?
Scott, how
Yeah,
I got it, you this is like I think you're really underestimating the richness and the fire behind human curiosity.
oh, no, I'm not.
But hold on. You're saying that like when everyone's doing nothing, that means like you think that people on Earth, when we have nothing to do, we're gonna look up at space and be like, huh, I have artificial intelligence. Everyone's extremely rich. I'm not being controlled by this robot. And there's this vast thing here that this robot can help me create tools where I can go explore this
Yeah,
with my people. There's so much work to be
well,
done in
that's
space.
something I've definitely overlooked, but thinking about it now, that's gonna come a lot earlier than the point where everyone loses their jobs. Like, that's maybe even the next step in AI.
I
Is
think so.
because Elon Musk is all about that shit anyway. You know what I mean? Like he loves the SpaceX, he loves the AI. They're gonna combine it, and they're gonna start doing that sort of stuff.
Put robots. I mean, I know China has a robot in their space station.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, space stations themselves are probably a bunch of robots, very simple tasks they're performing, but
You've seen
it
Avatar, haven't you?
not the new one.
No, the old one.
Yeah,
This
I've
is
seen
kind
it a
of the
few times.
basis of all of Avatar. Like we go out to another place. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember Avatar
And
specifically
then we
mentioning
destroy
AI.
their sacred tree because we're mining resources that we can bring back to Earth, and then the people on Earth use them to build structures in the Sahara Desert when they have the right permits.
Dude, this is all out of boredom too.
Well, that's the thing is like we'll find shit to do. When I say everyone
Exactly.
has nothing to do, I mean it in like a base level sense, like a what now, right? But
This is the
obviously
what now.
everyone's still gonna find something. Like
Yes.
some people aren't going to be inclined to want to go into space or build structures or anything like that. Some people are gonna want to paint for like 50 years. That's all they're gonna want to do is they're gonna want to paint.
Or virtual reality YouTube shorts. That's
Yeah,
all they
they're
want to
gonna
do
want to
4 hours
they're
a
gonna
day.
want to content create. They're gonna want to play video games. They're gonna want to play tennis. They're gonna want to play football. Like it's
But some of them will want to be Elon Musk as well.
some of them will want to push the limits on what little limits there are to push with robots. Because the thing is with robots is sure the AI can figure out what to do next, right? But for the most part, it's still governed by what we tell it to do.
So let's bring in, like, okay, how is AI about to solve the housing crisis in California? How is AI about to solve the fact that everyone wants to live on the beach in California for affordable prices? Let's walk through that problem, because until
Yes,
a problem like that is solved, until every single human being has a nice piece of property on the
on
beach
the beach.
that's of equal standing to the person next to them,
Yes.
this is not going to happen. And this has got to be, like,
Well,
this is a fundamental part of my argument, is that
yeah.
until we have absolute equality
Well, the
across
thing is,
humans.
it won't be a quality. It'll be a quality of leisure, but it won't be a quality. Like I said, like things are gonna have to revert to classism.
You're
You're gonna
right.
start. You're gonna start hating people because they live in the Midwest and they don't have the fucking luxury of being on the beach. And you might even be relocated to the Midwest because you didn't retain. 1% of people have jobs and all of them get to live on the beach. They're like, you get over in Nebraska, you fool.
But that's kind of what's going on today. And to
It
be,
kind of is. It kind of is.
it's
It's just gonna
pretty,
be way more extreme when everything else is, done for you.
dude, I think this is very similar. We just had a mass exodus out of California because of mostly what you're talking about and
Yeah,
what we've been
exactly.
talking about. It's like prices here are extremely high. There's only a few types of workers that can live here, and it's because they're highly skilled and their work allows them to get an income that allows them to pay for the living expenses,
Yeah,
and everyone
exactly.
else moved inland and is
Yeah,
planning to move
they have
inland.
nicer quality of life since they moved inland, but the geography of it is bad. Their geography sucks in general. If you're a mountain person, then you're gonna want to live in the mountains. If you're a beach person, you're gonna want to live in the beach. If you're a desert person, you're gonna want to live in the desert. But none of that really matters on an individual scale. It's all going to matter about as a collective what everyone values the most. And if everyone values the beach over the mountains or the desert, then all of a sudden all the beach resources are going to be allocated to the people with the most money or with the most value in a certain sense.
This
You could be
sounds
you could be
like,
happy living in the mountains, right? But you might maybe only 40% of people prefer mountains to beach. If 80% of people prefer beach, then it's going to be the most expensive place to live.
this
And
sounds
like,
like this sounds like the history of real estate, dude.
yeah, it is the history of real estate. But like, here's the other thing: we grew up here, and we know some beach people for sure. We know some beach people who hit the beach every day, almost every day. The tan people. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I probably shouldn't name drop anyone, but yeah, there's some
Don't
people that are all about the surf life. There's some people that are hella tan, got the bleach blonde hair. But then there's other people like me, and let's say Teaspoon, right? Teaspoon, I don't think he's been to the beach in like fucking 10 years.
Ever.
We got
Yeah.
over it. We got over it out of elementary school for the most part. I love going when I can, but I'll only go like once or twice a summer, even though when I was living there, I'm like 10 minutes from the beach. It's nice to have next to you, but like for me it's not imperative that I have it. And some people just want to see the sun going behind the waves, and that's why they're paying all the
Wait,
millions of
Scott,
dollars for
Scott,
their houses.
Scott,
Yeah.
Scott. I don't understand. You're making an argument as to how AI will change almost nothing because
It
you're saying
won't. It will,
yes.
but it won't.
That's the argument I'm getting out of here is that almost everything will be the same except more distinct between the
The
classisms, which
government's also gonna have to be more totalitarian because everyone's gonna want to go to the beach because they have leisure time now. They can easily just take a self-driving car from Nebraska to Laguna Beach. The problem is there's fucking 500,000 other people doing that, and Laguna Beach doesn't have that capacity. So the government's
dude,
gonna have to step in and issue beach permits. You need a permit to go visit the beach.
I think you're taking this way farther than it is. It's like someone's going to recognize that there's only a limited amount of house. I mean, you look at Miami. Miami has 20-foot skyscrapers on the beach. Here
Yeah,
we have a 5-bedroom mansion that houses 2 people right
yeah,
on the
exactly,
beach.
exactly.
This is the issue here.
Yeah,
This is where now we're getting to like what I feel is the root cause. It has nothing to do with AI. It has nothing to do with all. It's like most of the indisparities like can be there's resolution to it and there's
there
work
is,
to be done.
but it's not sexy and it's not pretty. Laguna Beach is my favorite beach city of all, right? There's a reason I don't go to Huntington. It's because Huntington's already starting to do that shit, that Miami
Yes.
shit. I don't, I, Miami's cool as skyscrapers on the beach or whatnot. That's not very intimate. It's not very romantic, right? You want
Yes.
those tiny little houses nestled in the hills. You don't want to build a skyscraper in Laguna Beach. Although that would allow for many people to live there, it
So,
ruins everyone else's living situation who's there. And then
well,
it becomes an issue.
I mean, I don't think it becomes an issue. I think it's just the people who can't afford to live in those extremely nice houses deal with their situation and live
Yeah.
farther out. And
Yeah.
that's what happens now. I mean, like
Yeah.
people like
People
there's
go to
only
Laguna Beach. You don't have to live there to go there.
well, exactly. And the main thing that starts revolution is like grain. Like when people aren't able to purchase grain, that's like the biggest bait. When the general public has a very difficult time purchasing grain,
Yeah.
that is usually the onset, or it's something to do with religion or culture, can
Yeah.
also be it.
Yeah.
But if people just have to live like 20 minutes down the street and
Yeah.
like that's I feel as though that's something we deal with now
Yeah.
and it's not a big deal.
No. But if you have to live 20 hours away from where you're trying to go, then it's a big deal, right?
Yes, I don't know what point you're making with that because
Well,
you don't have to go anywhere because you don't have anything to do because you're
you
it's
go places because you don't have anything to do, right? You want to go see some shit.
yes.
Yeah, it's just because AI is theoretically taken over doesn't mean that
Well,
you're gonna stay in Nebraska. You're gonna want to go travel a bit. You're gonna want to go to the beach every once in a while.
this is why AI won't take over because someone's going to be like I need to go if someone is limited and they have no way to get out, I feel I'm not sure. This is a very complicated issue.
It
It
depends
could
if I guess it depends how AI is used. If AI gets to the point where it starts doing everything for us, that's one way to do. That's one way it could go. The other way it could go is if AI does everything we tell it to do. And then the people technically still have some power because if you have a good idea and you tell the AI to do this good idea, then you're going to come out ahead and then you can live at the beach and you don't have to live in Nebraska. I keep shitting on Nebraska here. I feel like I need to use a different Midwest state because I'm sure it's nice. But
That's the basis of prompt engineering, what you just said. And
exactly, it's how AI functions right now, essentially. But like eventually it'll have more capabilities and you can be able to tell it to do. It's just the fact that you had the idea and you made it do that and you profited off of it allows you to live at the beach. And this living at the beach thing is becoming such a metaphor in this theoretical world we've created.
but it's not even a metaphor. This is today, dude.
This is today. This
This
is
has been
today
this
also.
has been all of history as well. This is history, this is today, this is the future.
But
This
I would
is
argue it's maybe not that hard to live at the beach.
I would argue it's really hard to live at the beach.
Well, it depends who you're asking. If you're asking someone from Nebraska, it's probably not that hard. If you're asking someone from sub-Saharan Africa, maybe it's pretty hard. Right? But
Yes.
like the education is there that someone could easily get the job I'm in. Like I don't have like an insane job or a difficult to get into job, right? I'm
I get
able to afford rent. I'm able to put a little bit away for savings, pay off my loans. But for the most part, like it's not completely unaffordable living here. There are ways.
yes.
And
There are
I'm
ways.
in Fullerton, so I'm not like at the beach, but it's there.
And that's good enough.
Yeah, it's there. It's good
And I
enough.
think
I don't even go that much.
that's gonna be our life. I live like 20 minutes from the beach. That's good enough for me.
Yeah,
I
we
could
got we got
pay
Big Bear too. We live close to the mountains. That's
exactly.
that's another thing about California that people like about it too is like we have beach, mountains, and desert, and they're all relatively close from exactly where we are, and that's maybe more so the economic value of where we're living. Is it's not just the access to the beach; it's the access to different things.
Yes. It's not just the access to the beach. I mean, seaside cities are some of, I mean, most cities in Europe that are inland are on rivers, and
Yeah,
then there are many cities that are on coasts that are, huge.
yeah,
The seas used to be, I've heard this before, now we think of water as like a barrier from the other part, like you have this country's land and then there's water and then there's this
yeah,
country's land. But before the automobile, the seas used to be the great connector of lands.
yeah.
So
Because it was the only way to get from place to place and trade well.
yes, trade well and effectively. Land was
Yeah,
not an effective way of trade. The seas
yeah.
were easier.
And so all the European port cities are super. Amsterdam's a port city. Bruges was a port city, and those are the wealthy ones too.
Lisbon and Porto.
Switzerland's like the only country I can think of that got insanely rich without using the ocean.
And it was very poor before the world wars. I believe it was a very poor country.
Yeah, I think they got all their money through just like banking, I guess, right?
And I think it was banking with the Third Reich. Am
Yeah,
I wrong to say that?
I don't know. I mean that's not really something I think they'd proudly bring up in tours or anything like that.
I mean,
But
that's something
that
I've
makes
heard in
sense.
history throughout, I
Yeah,
don't know about that, and we should definitely take care. But this is the kind of what I've taken from what I've heard about that is like
yeah.
it was really they were a pretty impoverished country until the first half of the 20th century, and then through banking they were able to pick themselves up and become the very wealthy country we are familiar with today.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although it kind of makes sense, other than the fact that I don't know how they built all those tunnels.
What
And
tunnels?
they have tunnels in Switzerland. It's like the whole thing's mountainous, so they have to drill through all the mountains to get certain things, right? And during the wars, they were effectively able to evacuate their entire country's population into a tunnel system.
Well, wasn't German didn't I thought Germany and Italy were using those tunnels to transfer goods.
I don't know. They might have, but I feel like Switzerland's policy has always been like, we're not gonna fuck around and find out. We're just gonna hunker
Well,
down, wait for this all to blow over. I think they were maybe housing some refugees at some point, and people wouldn't really attack them or do anything like that. I think I remember seeing that. I remember hearing this somewhere. It's like one of the towns on the German Switzerland border during the war left their lights on or something like that, or turned their lights off, and then it wouldn't get bombed because whoever was flying over it would think it was part of Switzerland.
okay.
Yeah. So like they tried to be as uninvolved in these wars, but at the same time they have like this doomsday prepper style countrywide. I think they engineered all their bridges with explosives. So if anyone tried to push their country, they could just blow up any of the bridges.
That's
They
something
they
people in the
only
mountains
recently
can
took
do.
them out. They only recently took the explosives out of the bridge, but they used to be built into the bridges, which is
I
like kind
feel
of
like
kind of
those,
nuts.
yes. I mean, in today's, modern military economy,
It
bridges are
was
not.
Yeah. I mean, it was a smart thing to do for back then, but like looking at it, you're like, holy shit, these guys were very serious about not being involved in things.
Mountain people.
Mountain people. It's weird. I mean, I'm a mountain person. I like the mountains. I would give up beach life for mountain life for sure.
You
It's
got
just
the beard for it.
Yeah, this is just because I'm lazy. I'll shave it eventually.
Nice.
But yeah, I got the mountain man look. I could pull it off. I lived in
That's
Denver for a little bit of time, and that was fun as hell. I like that place. That was probably my favorite city in the U.S. If I'm gonna be honest.
nice.
Way
What
more
did you
dope.
like about it?
It's compact. It seems like it's a big city, but it's kind of like LA in the sense that like there's a city center and then there's a metropolitan sprawl or like a
Okay.
suburban sprawl surrounding it. And in regards to being compared to LA, it's way smaller. Uh,
Really?
yeah, it was easy to get around. Like getting to downtown Denver, the bars had such a good vibe, right? Like everything was, once you got let off in this bar district, everything's walkable. I'm sure it's that way in a lot of different cities across the U.S. It's just not really the case in LA.
No,
You
it's
gotta
not.
you gotta Uber from bar to bar if you're trying to do stuff. The bars somehow have some degree of separation, except for like West Hollywood. There's a whole strip of gay bars in West Hollywood. The gays
Nice.
got
And they're
the
right
gays
by
got to
each
keep
other.
there, yeah, right by each other. But yeah, for the most part, you're gonna have to Uber from spot to spot. LA's not. It's got a lot of cool stuff. It's obviously big enough to attract, good music acts, good anything. You can find anything in LA, but it doesn't mean that you won't be stuck in traffic trying to get to it.
No,
Yeah,
no, it won't.
yeah.
Well, Scott, this was a great conversation. Are there any last words you'd like to tell the audience about AI, real estate, disparity, equality,
Oh, I don't even
anything?
know, dude. I feel like we haven't even gotten to the good stuff. No, it's oh, what was interesting? Oh, Google. They had that slogan, right? Don't be evil, and they took it away. They don't have the slogan anymore. And I'll
Okay.
leave you with that. You can think of that how you, how you want.
My guest today has been Scott Carnahan. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Scott.
Yeah, it's been a great time. Hit me up if you ever want to have me again.
Will do.